Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining. I'm your host, Dave Doerre, and we have our CEO and tax expert, Grace Schroeder. And today we have a very special guest. That is one Robert Bai. He is the founder of Zenture Partners. Now, this is an amazing company where in one platform you can manage and optimize all of your IT and your telecom services, utilizing AI. Very impressive stuff. I know that you have a background as a consultant. You've been out there in the vertical. You had felt a lot of pain points. Tell us a little bit about how Zenture Partners got it started, the challenges you had, and a little bit about where you're at today.
No, absolutely. So, I started in telecom 20 plus years ago, selling voice and data networks. And, I was selling for just a single provider and, I enjoyed it. And from there, I moved on to a very large bar and to learn a little bit more about the business. And then stepped into another role to support the largest, service providers. As I was doing that, one of my old large clients, which was Walgreens, made a decision to go to network as a service. And working with Walgreens, I was shocked by the decision, knowing, they're increasing costs, they're, giving up control. And I reached out to the VP who had made that decision. I said, Alexis, may I, help understand how you guys came to this conclusion? And they're like, we want absolutely nothing to do with telecom. We want out of this business. It's causing too much pain. And I'm like, even with the price and costs, they're like, it's just not worth it for us. And I was like, wow. And I'm like, if you're going to do this, I think many other companies are going to fall on your track, because there's just so many headaches that come to managing telecom. And when it comes to circuits and the edge, a lot of the who is responsible, who's at fault, and companies were going to look for some either way. And so I decided to step out and create Zenture Partners, initially as a broker to kind of help customers identify and evaluate solutions. But from there, it was how do we enable clients to have the information readily available at their hands to not only see what's available, but understand pricing, understand what other organizations are doing. To become informed decision makers. But every client that we speak to today is honestly wanting out of the telecom game. They want to be handing it off, and they're looking for some type of co-managed environment, and they need to have the ability to meet with different partners. And we had to come at it from a ability to speak as a agnostic partner of many providers worldwide.
And so that basically, if you came around pitching those services, you were a merchant of death. It was just nothing but a headache for your clients. What is it about your services? What is it about Zenture that you feel just undeniably just sets you apart, without a doubt, from your competitors?
Yeah. One, it's working with the largest enterprises for the last 20 years, like really understanding what they're truly looking for. And when it comes to telecom, I'll be honest, as smart as I feel we are, some of our technical resources, it's telecom. And we want to go the opposite direction, which is to make it as simple as possible, right? So clients want to deal with this as little sales interaction as we possibly can. So, I reached out to meet with Grace to, build a platform to give them that power, right? How do we enable our clients to have access to the same information we have in real time, and giving them that power to see what we see, to be able to hand off to us the grunt work, the stuff that no one wants to do, is where we're at. So instead of just trying to be a sales arm, we really want to step in and say, let us help get you a very good understanding of where you're at today, right? Not with your spend, but where you're at contractually. What you have for last mile, so you understand your diversity, restrictions. And so we can help build a plan for you to get to that stage of where you want to be to. Do you want to hand it off and get to network as a service? Do you really want to build a truly diverse dual internet type strategy? How can you do that? Well, we can't do that without knowing where you are. And we are really making big investments into our clients. And a lot of these clients, it's a 3 to 5 year project, and the amount of investment it takes for us before we start seeing an ROI is 18 to 24 months. Most of our competitors will not take that kind of time to really build those type of relationships out. So I think for us, it's the patience, it's the willing to make true investments financially into our clients to, understand what their needs are, to to continually invest into our platform to, build what they need from a report structure to create these, engagements, APIs with the carriers to truly understand the capabilities of what we can use with agentic AI and next generation AI capabilities to really make a streamlined approach to that. And that's our approach. We're making investments that no one else is. Everyone else is taking a very short-term approach. If you can't make money in 6 months, they won't listen to you. And like I said, our average client, ROI is 24 months. And that's a long time for, this type of organization and for our business.
So I'm going to chime in here because I actually think I have a better answer. I think that one of the core differentiators is Rob and Rob's experience and how he knows how to organize and price and architect solutions for his clients. And so what you see in telecom in general is a lot of the complexity sits because there are a lot of old systems that don't lend themselves to self-serve and APIs and all these things. So you need these specialized humans that understand the nomenclature and the acronyms, and that can actually tailor a solution that works for somebody. And so from his ability to do that all the way through to managing a life cycle is the value add, so that you never have a circuit that's not protected with a backup, so that you never have a turned down circuit that you continue to pay for, so that you know exactly where you sit today in terms of your inventory, what's coming due, what's not coming due. There really aren't organizations that take such a thorough approach to telecom lifecycle management that also have the domain expertise to do it.
And Rob, what kind of actual real life stories have you heard back from clients in terms of the impact that your technology has had on your everyday business, on their everyday business, I should say?
There's quite a few. And I don't want to speak to any specific client, but we have clients who have grown through acquisition. And when you're in manufacturing, I would say for most, IT's been considered a cost center. So when you continually acquire, the first goal is bring it in and figure out how to as quickly take over management as you can. And it's death by duct tape. Just make it work and try to keep it working as long as you can. So for us to be able to come in and make investments, for these organizations without them having to increase headcount, having to write a huge statement of work, that's a cost. For us to come in and help them, truly get their hands around what they have from an inventory, to help them identify short-term savings. The fact that we do this we're not doing a shared savings model. Like, we are operating on behalf of the client as a long-term partnership. And so when we look at these manufacturers that have gone from a $1.5 billion organization 8 years ago to today being almost $8 billion in revenue through 40 acquisitions, they don't have an understanding of where they're at, and that those acquisitions are going to continue. So for us to be able to come in and not only help them collect that inventory, we've now been able to help them consolidate all their global connectivity. We are building a streamlined approach to consolidating their global service providers. They're going to move from what's going to be close to 600 invoices, probably down to 20 invoices in the next 2 years. They've moved from several different network edge appliances to a single network appliance today that is being co-managed. They now can do that with fewer resources on their side, which means that they can focus on bringing in other parts of the business. And when people ask me, what are we really focused on? They don't have time to go out and, understand what's new in the marketplace. They don't have time to go and spend 4 or 5 hours on with these service providers and understand these products. So those resources that they have today, they have to create business outcomes, and they need to meet with their stakeholders to create those things. They can't do that. They're constantly trying to keep a network up and running. And so what we are doing is we're taking that burden off their plates. We're taking all that grunt work, and we're allowing them to take that on. The next part is when you look at customers who have dealt with the big three from a service provider, and they order circuits globally, and Verizon, AT&T will not tell you who they use for last mile in Mexico, right? And if you want diversity, they'll say, who do we need to avoid? Well, if you're using an Xperia or some other provider who is doing the same thing, they'll say avoid Verizon. Well, it's very easy to avoid Verizon in Mexico because they don't have services. And we have a large manufacturer who you may be driving one of their vehicles who has locations down there who have had multiple outages because their two providers today have had multiple outages simultaneously because they're using the same path. And we're talking about circuits that combined total cost is under $5,000. And so they asked us if we could help. And so we were able to go in, identify who both providers were using. We identified an alternative path on how to bring a new service in that was completely diverse, had them order that service. It was an uptick in cost, but for that $2,000 increase in cost, it took away all risk of diversity at that location. And for them, it was no brainer. And for them now, they wanted visibility into all their locations. How do we truly get that visibility? Because they don't want to have this happen in other locations. A manufacturing plant being down for 2 days isn't costing the company $2,000 or $3,000. It's costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. The SLA credit you get from an AT&T or Verizon for a $2,000 circuit for 2 days is $12. The SLA credit doesn't do anything for the business. And clients are done. They want visibility, and they truly need to have someone who's going to go and get what they're asking for. And those are those use cases that they're finally happy that someone's doing something that's a benefit to them, instead of playing these games of just tell me who to avoid. And when you're ordering from AT&T, they won't tell you. How do you tell the other provider who to avoid, and vice versa? So those are just a few of those use cases. I would say the next is the way providers send quotes is in every different type of model. And so our system to be able to take quotes from different types of viewpoints to put it in an easy, consumable side-by-side comparison, so one could look at it and go, thank you, I can now understand what AT&T, Verizon, Lumen, GTT were quoting. I can make sure that it is apples to apples and make an intelligent decision versus questioning what I'm looking at. So we help them truly become informed decision makers. We're helping them take a lot of time back in their day. And when they do make a decision, there's no second question.
So it's really not just about creating efficiencies. I mean, you're really transforming the entire ballgame basically here.
Yes, I mean, we have clients who are starting to look at the slow path, and we have CIOs, CEOs who are asking us to move to a co-managed environment, right? Because they need help with their network teams who have minimal capabilities, right? They're short on resources. They need help to be able to expand this globally, and they need somebody who can help keep their networks up and running. No one wants to manage networks, right? Let's just be honest. The world of network today, internet circuits is a pure commodity, right? To me, it's like air. We need it in order to breathe. We need air in order to function. You need internet in order to operate as a business, right? Without it, we can't function. But we don't think about breathing, and we shouldn't be thinking about our network. And we spend too much time thinking about it. And nothing against a lot of these network groups, but they've been doing the same thing as they have for the last 10 years. They give themselves certain projects every year to do, but it's not transforming the business. It's not improving, operational efficiencies. It's not benefiting specific, stakeholders. And so they need people to help kind of drive those business initiatives that allow them to really take a look at, what is this going to do for our business? And if you want to be able to transform, you need to kind of take a look at going, a little bit further, and you need, partners who are going to help you do that.
Yeah, and I want to highlight some of what Rob said, because he's been in the business a long time. I left the business 20 years ago with, conversations around, we need to be more self-serve. We have, people that don't want to call us. We've got long wait times, and it has not changed. It has not changed at all. And so I think the interesting points that from my view is he's recognizing that a lot of the players are going to go away. You know, if you look at software development, for example, and we have had this conversation for years, like, okay, you got a project manager, you have a team lead, you have a developer, you have an architect, you have a UI UX, you've got QA. Well, now with the tooling that's out there, you don't need that many roles to make things go really well, faster, with hands-on domain experts creating your automation. Well, the same sort of trend has happened in telecom. In the olden days, you had like a zillion different service providers, and people hired telecom expense management professionals to help them keep track of everything. But to Rob's point, why do you need that many service providers? You don't. You know, you could strip those all down to one or two, and then all of a sudden you don't need a telecom management service provider to do some of the tedious work that that needs to be done. So I think, you know, what Rob's done unique from others in the space is like really visualize like where he came from and where it's all going, and he's on that path. And the more clients that he talks with, they're like, yeah, you're right, I don't want to talk to a salesperson, like, just get me the quote. Well, no, sorry, you have to talk to a salesperson. I hate that. I mean, I hate you already. If you're making me come to a sales call and I just want to log in and play around myself, then I hate you already. Like, it's your process is more important than how I decide to experience a new service.
Yeah, and to add, I mean, since COVID, right? I mean, and COVID changed a lot in how we worked, right? We work from home, you know, we're on Teams calls, and you know, a lot of our clients, they're on Teams calls that go from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. They don't have time to take, you know, a phone call from a salesperson or spend time in that day. So a lot of this, they want to be able to do in their free time, maybe after 5 o'clock or in the evening. Well, salespeople aren't working at those times, right? And so why not give them some ability to do this, you know, on their own? And it's just funny, the approach when we speak with these service providers, you know, they'll be like, Rob, they want to speak with a salesperson. I'm like, they don't want to talk to me. And then these are people I've worked with for 15, 20 years. It's just funny, that adage, you know. I worked at XO, and I remember in 2008, Carl Icahn, who owned XO, you know, was a major, you know, shareholder of Blockbuster, and they were looking at buying Netflix at that time for $50 million. And no one at Blockbuster thought Netflix had a good business model, right? It's not going to be sustainable. No one wants to go down this path. Everyone likes coming into the stores, right? I didn't, but it was your only option. A year later, you know, they ended up saying no. A year later, Netflix starts streaming. 3 years later, Blockbuster files for bankruptcy. And today, Netflix is worth $600 billion. The problem is these service providers, they don't speak with the end users about what they really want. And when you look at AT&T, Verizon, these big groups, there's a reason why the Net Promoter Score is 31. They absolutely are the worst in all of B2B business, because the issue is they've grown their business so much. They've sold all these expensive technologies like MPLS and VPLS, and they're so focused now on their mobility side that they don't want to help their clients reduce, you know, their technology to internet services. So what they do is they just kind of disappear. There's no proactive customer service. So they'd rather have you spend $3,000-4,000 on a service that technically should be $1,000 today. But they feel that the longer we avoid you, the more you'll pay. But at some point, you're going to get contacted by another organization. You're going to find out that it's $1,000, a quarter of the price. You'll move, and you'll be so disappointed with AT&T that you'll never do business with them. But the issue is that all other service providers have taken that same model of, this is how we need to approach our customers. And it's like, if we had a true marketplace where we kept our clients informed of where it's at, we proactively said, hey, here's what's coming up in the market, here's what's going on with your services, they would continue to buy and build, right? Because there's not another service, there's not another product in the world that I can't go on a computer and get a current price for.
Yeah.
We treat people like, you know, you're stuck. And why is this such a painful experience? But you absolutely need internet to operate, and we should just make it easy. And I tell all these other service providers, if you were to make it easy and just gave them proactive pricing, if you gave them proactive customer support, you could double revenues. You could take this money and revenues away.
People would die of shock, and then they'd buy from you.
They just don't, because they all come like this. That's not how AT&T and Verizon operate. And I'm like, okay, do you want to do the Blockbuster model? Did you really think Blockbuster was going to stick around?
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, when you're in sales mode, that's when you do hit a wall, because it's so obvious that this is a superior way of doing business. Is it just kind of this generalized fear dysfunction? Do they, what is it that keeps them from taking action outside of that?
I think there's quite a few things. I mean, one, it's the old sales model, right? Where it's people are built based on how big your sales teams are, right? So your bigger your sales organization, the bigger your title, right? So if you want to be an EVP, you have to have a sales organization of, let's just say 5,000 people. But you could probably have the same sales results with an organization of 1,500 people, but you're no longer an EVP, which means your bonuses are built different, your base salaries are built different, your retainment bonus, like all that stuff changes, even though you're producing the same amount. So instead of building a model that is beneficial to, say, a shareholder or to the overall business, you're built to create as large of an organization as you can, right? So it's not as a benefit to the company. So you just want to build this massive organization with all this. So
that's sort of a hangover from when AT&T was a monopoly, right? It's like nobody had to worry about costs because everybody got paid, and then as a utility, they got to make a certain amount of margin on top of whatever their costs were. No incentive to drive down costs. And then deeply baked into the DNA of these companies is this, we don't have to run efficiently. Well, hey, they are commodities now. And the salesperson you're forcing me to talk to when all I really want is a quote is now, public enemy number one in my eyes, because you're wasting my time. I don't need to be sold a circuit. I need to know A to Z what the price is.
And Grace, as the CEO of Slinger, obviously Rob's partner in this entire endeavor, what does it mean to you and your company to really see your efforts and technology really make this kind of a difference?
We love it. I love it in particular because I've always been that human in the large company that says, there has to be a better way. In part, I started Slinger because, I was managing a spreadsheet department of over 40 people that calculated revenue-based quotas every month using Excel. And so there are different personas that will take sort of an improvement idea up the chain and try to make it happen. And Rob's one of those, and I'm one of those, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are threatened. They maybe they don't get paid that much. They're like, why should I hassle finding a new way to do my job? But the reality is, this is where it's going. There's no doubt about it. Rob's forward-looking view is the accurate one. And I love working with people and founders and entrepreneurs that see something and are just devoted to making it happen. And Rob's one of those people.
And Rob, just kind of wrapping up, what do you see? What do you see Zenture in 5 to 10 years? This is an incredible leap that you've taken just in the last, year, 18 months or so. Where do you see things in 5, 10 years, would you say?
First, I have to thank Grace because I am educated more on what AI and the platform can do. So, every week when I'm trying to think where we'd like to be, it's a lot of what Grace has shared on what agentic AI can do. So, when I'm looking at, what can replace a salesperson, right? And how do we automate things? It's, this agentic AI between the customer and the salesperson. I think that's something that's coming. But when I look at a true marketplace, if you want to buy software, AWS marketplace, Azure marketplace, you can buy almost any software you need for technology. If you want to buy hardware components, the CDWs, the SHIs, the Insights, you can buy a lot of your components, your hardware, server, storage, and those things. But when it comes to telecom, when it comes to other IT services, right? Things that there's not an easy place to go to find IT asset disposition, field services, third-party maintenance support, all those things that don't really have an easy bucket, having that marketplace. Then next is literally having a true, like, I don't want to call it like a Gartner response, but the ability to really have a pure insight where people are sharing their thoughts about it, be it like a Reddit environment where we can get guidance on what's working for these enterprises, what's that experience like, but also the ability to allow an executive, a VP of IT, a CTO to connect with another CTO at another organization without salespeople be able to access that, right? So at these private communities that allow, peers and other organizations to interact and talk about what's working well to really help drive technology in that basis. I think that's where we're really heading towards. In that spot, that will allow us to really also take new technologies that are coming into the marketplace and giving them a place to help them launch those products. Because where do you launch a new product at? Especially in a service type environment, software is one spot, but if you're launching a service, where do you go launch it in the enterprise in space? Because if salespeople are going away, right, which is my feeling, how are you going to get that out there? And there's conventions, there's seminars, there's all these places, but if we could build a marketplace that allows groups to come and really present their solutions, we're going to have people really, share their inputs about them, and then provide it in a marketplace where it's, priced out and given those aspects, I think we'll have an informed, buyer that is, using it more and more often. And, I told Grace, I think we'll have over $1 billion in monthly recurring spend on our platform here by 2028. And that's kind of our target.
And the marketplace would seem to be just a natural, organic direction of things. It's just overcoming the human fear.
It's happened everywhere. Expedia did it for airlines.
I'm pumping my own gas these days. It's crazy. It really is crazy. Grace, do you have any final words on the topic?
Look, I think that it's we're in a very unique point in time where people with terrific domain expertise can codify that with the help of software development and AI. And I think it's really opening a whole new universe of software providers like Zenture that can recognize a business need and bring something to market very useful very quickly. That's not going to turn into some behemoth that is outdated after a year. So I'm a huge Rob supporter. I'm a huge supporter of the advancement of telecom, and we have seen this path that we've seen this playbook before. This is not the first time. It's just in an industry that's got a bunch of complexity that we're now in a position to simplify.
Yeah, and complexities that probably would, long overdue. Needless to say, now finally we have the technology, and the marketplace is an amazing concept. Hopefully that will come to fruition very soon. But listen, Rob, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been very educational, really enlightening. Congratulations on all these advancements that you're making on behalf of your clients. Grace, as always, thank you so much for being on the show as well. And thank you for all those who are watching.